What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to a From Screen to Shelf review. Not a very special one this time around. Today, we are here to talk everything about the new Borderlands movie. I did just get out of it. So, I'm pretty much going to break this up into half non spoilers, half spoilers. And we're going to just dive right into the nitty gritty of this just greasy sewer of a movie that we got out of. So, I mean, I say that, but it's not the absolute worst thing that I've seen. There's much worse out there. I just think that this movie is, I'd say, 8, 9 years late. It came out in the mid 2010s. I think it would have fared a lot better. But the thing is there's been a common trope a lot lately whenever it comes to video game adaptations. Sonic being an anomaly, Mario being an anomaly. Really, honestly, there being a lot of really good ones lately, but there's been just as many as if they're repeating the same patterns from the 90s and the early 2000s, where it's like a book. You have a lot of the source material written for you. Of course, you're more than welcome to use it as a template, right? But books and video games are different mediums. Books, you visualize your own world and everything, and you can kind of paint your own picture based on how the author's describing it to you. Games, you're typically going to get a lot more attached to these characters because you're spending, especially in something like Borderlands, anywhere from 40 to 100 hours, if not more. I know I sunk at least 80 plus hours way back in the day with my friends in at least Borderlands 2. So I like to consider myself a fan. I'm not an expert on the lore or anything like that. And quite frankly, I forget a lot of the lore. I barely, even this movie reminded me of some things. I was like, oh, yeah, you guys are doing that wrong? So whenever it comes to stuff like that, it just seems like some studios just really don't get the approach. Like these are M-rated games, first and foremost. And I'm just prefacing this, and you decided to make a PG-13 movie. You immediately turned people off. Your casting decisions, while the cast wasn't awful at all, I'll go ahead and get it out of the way. Kevin Hart wasn't awful. The person that played Krieg, already forgot, wasn't awful. Jamie Lee Curtis, barely in it, but she's not awful. Jack Black is okay as Claptrap, probably his most okay role I've ever seen him in, and I find him to be almost a perfect actor because he doesn't get bad roles. He may not be the star or may not be in a great movie, but Jack Black himself is usually the shining gem in almost anything, even if it's a stinker. So I find him to be a very respectable person, and most of that was passive. But you alter so much of the core origins and what these characters are to introduce a family friendly format of it. You better get ready for what's happening with this movie to happen. And that's exactly what happened. Like everybody called this from a mile away before this movie even came out, and it's just manifesting its own destiny at this point. Eli Roth, I don't think, was the appropriate director for this. I think he probably could have gone a lot further with some R ratings, and there's even some parts in this movie where they really were pushing that PG-13 limitation, but it still wasn't enough to make me go, damn, you at least you tried, because it's like you very easily could have. You got the essence of Pandora, you got a lot of that about what makes Pandora Pandora. It's a very bland, dangerous place, and it's the characters that make up for it, and that's where it really lacks. Whenever it comes to Tina, she just isn't as exciting as she is in the games. And again, it's harder to bring those larger than life personalities to reality because you have real people being them. Of course, you have voice actors in these games, but it's just a little bit hard to kind of separate that. Lilith is a shell of what she is in the game, and they even acknowledge in the movie, and it's written in the movie, that she's old. It makes no sense. Why do that? It adds absolutely nothing to the story. It doesn't. It just really doesn't. Kevin Hart, I don't get why you're calling him Royland because that's not Royland, but that's okay. Kevin Hart wasn't the worst thing about this movie. The entire first half of the movie, I'd say I was kind of checking the time, but I'd say I could be misquoting, but essentially when the action really stops, because it's pretty nonstop, introduce you, get them up and go type of vibe whenever it comes to this movie. So they're just constantly going for like the first, I'd say 30, 35 minutes, maybe 40 minutes pushing it. That was around the time that I checked the time because there was something that just fucking cringy that happened that just absolutely was okay. I see this is where the downfall happens because it just kept fucking happening. And it's the awful writing in this movie. It really is its own downfall. I'll get into more whenever I talk spoilers. But as a little bit of dialogue, there's this part between two of the main characters where they aren't trusting each other, and it doesn't really allude to them not trusting each other. It just immediately goes from them talking to "I don't fucking trust you" to like Yosemite Sam 0 to 100. It makes no sense. But what made it fucking worse than that, outside of the awful pacing and dialogue decisions in that, is it then de-escalates from 100 to 0 within seconds right after that. It makes no sense. And there's constantly moments like this. There's constantly moments where they're trying to get you emotional, trying to convey a message of some form. I'm stuttering. This movie was so agitating at points. It just really, really just stank, man, whenever it came to it. But the good parts I actually really liked, and I will go in there. I always say it on here all the time. that I grade movies for what they are, not what I want them to be. And I was embracing the movie for what it was trying to give me. And while it was hard at some points, I felt like I was about to walk away and say, yeah, this movie is a 5 out of 10. I don't know what other people are saying. I can understand it. But I mean, I think it's a perfectly passable movie past its time. Now, the other thing, and that's really going to be just after this, I'm going to transition to spoilers because I have to talk about some certain things. Whenever it comes to the way that um, this movie decided to alter the character, let me touch base on that. I don't know why that's at the forefront of my mind. You just altered the characters so much to where they were almost fundamentally entirely different characters that you just made look like them. That just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. So, another gripe was the score. The score, it was so all over the place. It made 0 sense. It really did. The score really made no sense. Yeah, it just doesn't work, man. It really is, and that's the last part, that the score and the final product of the movie really tie in before I go a little bit more into spoilers. The All of the comparisons saying that this is like a Guardian of the Galaxy clone, I was just like, "Stop, just let it try to be what it is, not every team up movie's that." That's kind of what I thought people were assuming going in and expecting to get out of this, because Borderlands isn't fucking Guardians of the Galaxy. And we did a trailer reaction on here, so I definitely watched the trailer, I forgot about it, but they really try hard to make this movie like that. They really, really, really do. They really do in every which way, and they just fail at every single point, from, like, the '80s, '90s, soundtrack, but the soundtrack is what just absolutely rips you out of it, because you'll get to, like, this, like, light synth to something from the '80s, just, some nice metal going in, and it's just very Guardians of the Galaxy-esque, and it just this entire movie, I'm gonna go ahead and say it's not the worst movie of the year. Tarot still, because there's a lot of people that have been asking me as I'm gonna go see this, is this movie as bad as gonna be as bad as Tarot? That's why I was kind of excited. I was hoping. I always want things to be good, but with what I was hearing, I was like, okay, I just hope at least I walk out and I have something different to talk about for the rest of the year. I didn't get that. It's not that awful, but it really is a 3.5 out of 10, maybe a 4 if I rewatched it and found some more that I could really get into. But the fucking awful dialogue, man. Like, there's just some really awful points. So now that you have the score, we're going to transition to spoilers because I'm fresh on my mind about this. Three, two, one. The fucking awful dialogue in this movie. So to preface what I was talking about earlier, the part with Lilith and Royland, like, questioning their trust, is just so, like, up and down immediately with very little time to bake. It just right after you got out of a high speed chase, just got out of some high stakes hijinks and stuff like that, and it just really, really brings it down flat. There's another point where it's like, they're in this den of psychos and stuff, and all of them are kind of right there. And this wire comes across apart. I'm sorry, speechless after this. So this wire comes apart, and so Kevin Hart's Royland leaves out of there and just like, leave without me. I'll see you at the vault. Ah, everything like that. Just fucking tropey, and it's just so fucking cringy. Like, who sat there, made that, and been like, that's been done 1,000 times, and you know what? We did something different. We did something better. That is the part where this movie really falls a fucking part. It tries to pull at your heartstrings in moments where there's nothing to fucking pull. It tries to start a conversation with something and get you to your emotions to feel a way, and does nothing with it. It's just so horribly done. And this movie absolutely fucking reeks of studio interference. I'm sorry, but there's no way Eli Roth put this out there. I don't think he's a great director. I think he's had some good things that I've seen. I really like what was his Thanksgiving. That one was really fun. I really liked Green Inferno. He hasn't done a ton that's out there. I believe it was Hostel that he did. I'm not his biggest fan, even though he's part of the genre that I really find near and dear and hold close to my heart. I don't know why he was cast as this. I don't know why this movie was made. It's Pose yourself the same question after watching this. This movie is trying to fit the same target demographic as the Halo series was trying to do, and that was stay untruthful to everything. Who are you going to pull in? These are M-rated games. These are M-rated games. At best, preteens, depending on your family. I'm not trying to sit here and judge or anything, but in general, at best, some 13, 14-year-olds are getting a hold of your game that are outside of your technical target demographic. Your target demographic is 17 and up. That should have been an R rating. Even the parts in here like there's a part where, like, there's a flashlight constantly strobing and stuff like that, and it's hiding a lot of the gore and stuff like that because it's trying to be like, "Oh, you know what? We thought about it." That was the part where I was like, "Okay, this kinda reminds me of Event Horizon where there's a lot of studio interference and a lot was cut out," and you kinda do that just to pass the MPAA and get a certain rating because 'cause they're saying "bitch" all the time in this movie. They're cussing, not all the time, but Claptrap has a mouth, you know? It's so fucking frustrating. There's so much, especially the very ending with Lilith and, Atlas and then popping out. Alice was just fucking generic as hell. This movie just, again, I can't say it enough. It's not the worst movie. It's not the worst movie to come out in the last decade. I've seen people say that. I just would say that you probably don't watch a lot of movies if this is the worst movie that's come out. If it's the worst mainstream or big theatrical release, I can probably give you that because putting it up there with Tarot and trying to compare them like that, that's a rather indie, big theatrical release horror movie versus something that's a big summer blockbuster, essentially what it's posing itself as. So, I mean, I guess I can if I'd have to really think, I guess I could at least just not bring anything up and let you have that thought without really trying to counterpoint it. It's just this movie's not well done, guys. This is a very easy skip. They've already got the 4K steelbook up for pre-order for $40, and it looks nice, but just wait and you'll be able to find that for $10. Guys, I'm signing out. It's been a long day. That wasn't how I wanted to end my night. Um, Please like, comment, and subscribe, everything. Let me know down below what you want to see next. And please, let's start some dialogue about Borderlands down below. Maybe I missed a big gripe of yours. Maybe you have a much more negative standpoint. If you do, let me know down below. If you love this movie, that is freaking awesome. I love positivity. Drop it down below. Appreciate you.